All right, we're going to start Unit 3. This first lesson is going to be rather fast because we were doing it in Unit 2. So we're just factoring, but we're going to solve. So the only difference is now we're just going to set everything equal to 0. Okay, so if you go ahead and turn to page 2. All right, so we have solve by factoring. Now, if you look at my screen in your packet, you will see that we have an issue right here. Yours says plus 2 minus 8. Go ahead and put that x in there. It was supposed to have an x. The x was missed. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and factor these. Remember, there are different ways of factoring. There is sum and difference of square cubes. There is difference of squares. There is grouping. The x method. There's quadratic formula. So you have to think about how many terms are in each problem. So if I look at this, but the one thing that I always have to look for is a GCF. So if I look at the first one, I have 4x minus 16. When I'm looking at that, I have the option of sum and difference of cubes, difference of squares, GCF. Okay? So let's look at that. If I look at my x, the exponent that is with it is a 1. For us to be able to do sum and difference of cubes, we've got to have a cube. For us to be able to do difference of squares, we've got to have an x squared. So we know that those two are out of the running. So the only other one that we have is GCF. So if I look at this, the 4 and the 16, what do they have in common? I could take a 4 out of both. So if I take out a 4, I'm left with x minus 4. Now, that is in the simplest form, so I can't go any further. Now, to be able to solve these, I'm just going to set each thing that I pulled out, each term, each factor, I'm going to set it equal to 0. So my first factor is the 4. So I'm going to set it equal to 0. And then my next factor is x minus 4. I'm going to set it equal to 0. Now I'm going to solve. So is 4 equal to 0? No, it is not. So I know that this one is not an option for me. Okay? Now if I solve the x minus 4, I want to get x by itself. I want to isolate the x on one side by itself. So to get rid of the negative 4, I'm going to have to add 4 to both sides. When I do that, I get x on the left, and 0 plus 4 is 4. So that means if I plug 4 in for x, my answer is going to be 0. Okay? That's where my graph will hit the x-axis. So when we get to graphing these at the end of this unit, this will all come together and you will be using this to graph. All right, let's look at the next one. We have 3 terms. So we could do x method, quadratic formula. We'll always look for a GCF first though. So I do not have a GCF because I have a 1, a 2, and an 8. So I don't have something that goes into all 3. So let's just go ahead and try x method. So is there anything I can multiply to get 8 or negative 8 and add to get a positive 2? I'm going to give you a second to think about it. You should have 4 and 2. Now one of those have to be negative, but remember, this one always takes the sign of your biggest number. So my biggest number is 4, so that means my 2 is negative. So my factors are x plus 4 and x minus 2. Now to set those equal to 0, x plus 4 4 is equal to 0. X minus 2 is equal to 0. Now I'm going to solve. So minus 4. So x is equal to negative 4. If I do the other one, I'm going to add 2. Both sides. So x is equal to 2. Now if you look, all that happened between here and here is that my sign changed. That's it. So if you catch that, you can do it that way. If you don't, that's perfectly fine as well. All right, the next one. We have 3 terms. So we're going to look for GCF first, then we can do X method or quadratic formula. So if I look at 3, 9, and 27, they all have a GCF of 3, so I could take a 3 out. Okay? So if I take out a 3, I'm left with x squared plus 3x minus 9. Now I can do the x method with what is in the parentheses. Okay? So is there anything I can multiply together to get negative 9 and to get 3? So think of your factors of 9 and then see if they will add or subtract to give you 3. Let's see. So my factors of 9 are 1 and 9. 1 plus 9 gives me 10. Then I have 9 minus 1 gives me 8. So 8 or 10, that's not going to work. Then I have 3 and 3. 3 plus 3 is 6. 3 minus 3 is 0. So this one is not going to work that way. Our best thing that we could do with this one is the quadratic formula. Now remember, it's negative b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So a is 1, b is 3, and c is negative 9. Let me write this over a little bit so you can see it better. B is 3. There you go. So negative b, so negative 3 plus minus the square root. B squared, so 3 squared, minus 4 times a times c. All over 2a. Alright, so you can put this in your calculator. I prefer to do it by hand, so I'm going to show you. We've got negative 3 plus minus 3 squared is 9. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. Negative 4 times negative 9 is a positive 36. And then 2 times 1, of course, is 2. I'm going to erase this other so we have room, because I should already have that on the paper. All right, so 9 plus 36 is 45. We have the square root of 45. Plus minus and negative 3, and all that is over 2. So the square root of 45. Now, unless you know square root's really good, you need to put that in your calculator so you have the exact answer. It's going to be, this is how I'm continuing. You can write a little bit smaller so that way you have room. But negative 3 plus minus 3 square roots of 5 all over 2. And you can leave it that way. As we go further along, I'll have you just put that in a decimal. Some of you may already be doing that. Either one is fine. I would take either one. When you get ready to graph, you're going to learn it as a decimal. Just so that way you can be able to graph it. Now you have 2 at the bottom. I want you to try those. And then pause the video, try them, and then come back and see if you get what I got. Okay? Alright, so if we look at the first one, always look for a GCF first. We have 8 over 2. I can take an 8 out of that. That's going to leave me with x squared minus 4. Now I'm going to factor what is in parentheses. So x squared minus 4, that is 2 options, sum and difference of cubes and difference of squares. If I look at my exponent, it is a 2, so that takes me down to difference of squares. I need to look and see if I am subtracting, and I am. Now, x squared is a perfect square, and 4 is a perfect square, so I can do difference of squares. The square root of x squared is x. The square root of 4 is 2. So remember, one of these will be plus, and one of these will be minus. Now I can set it all equal to 0 and solve. So 8 is equal to 0, x plus 2 is equal to 0, and x minus 2 is equal to 0. Well, we know that 8 does not equal 0, so that's not one of our options. X plus 2, we're going to subtract 2. That's going to give us x is negative 2. For the next one, we have a positive 2, or we're going to add 2 to both sides. And that's going to give us x is equal to 2. So my zeros, my roots, however you want to refer to it, is plus minus 2. Now you can write this one of 2 ways. You can write it the way you see it right here. Or you may see it on a test or something, plus minus 2. Just make sure that plus minus is there. Okay? All right. Now if we look at the last one that you have, we're going to look for GCF. There is no GCF in 1, 6, and 7. But let's look at how many terms. We have 3 terms. We can do X method or quadratic formula. Let's do the X method. Y'all need practice on that, so let's do the X method. So I need to multiply to get negative 7, add to get 6. So my factors of 7, the only ones that I have, are 7 and 1. If I add them, I get 8. If I subtract them, I get 6. I need to know which one is going to be subtracted, though. So look at this. My 6 is positive, so my biggest number has to be positive. So this 7 is positive. That means the 1 is negative. So my factors, x plus 7, x minus 1. But I'm going to set those equal to 0 and solve. So x plus 7 is equal to 0. X minus 1 is equal to 0. Now I'm going to solve it. So minus 7. X is equal to negative 7. Plus 1. X is equal to 1. And there are my zeros. So when I get ready to graph this, that is where I'm going to cross the x-axis. All right, so you should be able to do your practice for this now. It's, like I said, the same thing that we did. Unit 2, we're just setting them equal to 0.